When I was 70, my son said, "We are taking you to a nursing home. This will be your home now." They left me there and never came back. Days later, my phone buzzed with 40 missed calls from their lawyer. "My name is Lenora Avery. I am 70. That morning began like so many others. Quiet and unremarkable. Evan told me he would drive me to a doctor's appointment because it was easier if he handled it. Mira waited by the car, arms folded, eyes fixed on something far behind me. There was a stiffness in their movements, a rehearsed precision I did not yet understand. The moment the doors locked, I sensed the shift. Evan's hands tightened on the wheel each time I asked where we were going. He did not answer until the road curved away from the familiar route to my clinic and toward the hill where the Portland Heights Nursing Center stood. My heart began to drum against my ribs, but I kept quiet. At my age, staying quiet felt like the only safe choice, until I realized it wasn't. Evan pulled into the circular driveway and finally turned to me, his voice flat, already decided long before we left the house. "We are taking you to a nursing home today. This will be your home now, in the back seat." I saw my suitcase neatly zipped, heavier than I remembered. They had packed it without me. That was when the truth settled in my bones. This was not sudden. This was planned. Inside, the staff greeted Evan by name. Papers were ready. Signatures highlighted. One nurse referred to my arrival as a long-term placement, as if my life had already been sorted into a file. I stood there, watching my son sign page after page, and the realization tightened around my chest. They had prepared everything before I ever stepped into the car. I just had not known. I sat on the narrow bed the nursing home staff called mine, hands still trembling from the ride over. The quiet pressed in around me, and memories began slipping through the cracks I had ignored for far too long. Evan had always been restless with money. One month, he talked about expanding his landscaping business. The next, he admitted he was behind on school tuition for the boys. Each time, he came to me with the same line, "Mom, it's temporary. Just a short loan to cover the mortgage or tuition." I believed him because believing was easier than wondering where I went wrong. Mira never offered to help, only criticized from afar. "This house is wasted space," she told Evan when I was still in the garden. "She rattles around in it alone. We could actually use it." Evan whispered something back, something too low to catch, but Mira's tone stayed sharp, edged with impatience. A few months ago, Evan brought over a stack of papers, "Insurance updates," he said, sliding a pen toward me. "Just routine. You don't need to read every line." I hesitated, and he softened his voice the way he used to when he wanted something. "Mom, trust me. It's for your protection." I signed. I wanted peace more than clarity. Later that afternoon, I heard Mira's voice through the hallway. "Once the house is secure, we'll finally breathe." Evan told her to keep her voice down. I pretended I did not hear anything. Back then, I told myself they were stressed, just young parents under pressure. I told myself families argue about money. It's normal. Sitting alone in this room, I finally let the truth steady itself inside me. I had signed something that did not protect me at all. A nurse guided me down a quiet hallway, speaking gently as if volume alone might break me. "We're happy to have you here, Ms. Avery. Your son said this would be a calm place for you to settle. We'll make sure you're comfortable." I wanted— the words slipped out before I could stop them. She smiled, not unkindly. "That's what he told us." She opened the door. "This will be your room." The space felt temporary, like it belonged to someone passing through rather than someone living. A thin blanket, a narrow dresser, a single chair. My suitcase sat on the floor, exactly where Evan had dropped it. I turned to look for him, but the hallway was already empty. He and Mira had disappeared without a goodbye, without even a glance back. My hands shook as I pulled my phone from my bag. I dialed Evan. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. Evan, call me. I'm confused, I said softly. I don't know what's happening. I tried again. Straight to voicemail. A staff member appeared at the doorway with a clipboard. Your son was here yesterday, she said casually. He completed the property documents early so your admission would be smooth. I stared at her. Property documents? What property documents? She flipped through her papers. It's standard when families arrange long-term transitions. He mentioned everything was already handled back at the house. Her voice faded behind the pounding in my ears. Evan had been here before, planning, signing, preparing. I sat on the narrow bed, the silence pressing against my chest. Somewhere between those papers and this room, my place in my own life had shifted without warning, and my son had told them I wanted this. The next morning, a woman from billing knocked on my door. She carried a folder tight against her chest, as if holding it too loosely might let something spill out that she did not want to explain. Ms. Avery, I just need to confirm a few details for your account, she said. Your son finalized the transfer paperwork yesterday, so everything should be processed soon. Transfer, my voice caught. What transfer? She looked up, surprised. The transition paperwork for your property. Your son assured us all arrangements were complete. The word rang in my head like a dropped pan. Transfer. I pressed my palms against my legs to steady them. Can you show me what he signed? I'm afraid I can't, she said softly. It was handled on his end. He said you didn't want to be bothered. My breath thinned. I never said that. Her expression flickered, but she moved on quickly, thanking me before stepping out. The door clicked shut behind her. I sat still for a long moment, letting the word sink deeper. Transfer. I remembered the stack of papers Evan pushed toward me months ago, the pen he placed in my hand, the calm voice he used when I hesitated. Mom, it's routine. You don't need to read every line. I signed because he was my son, because trusting him felt easier than asking questions that might embarrass us both. But now the pieces twisted into place his urgency. Mira's whispers about the house, the missing charger, the rushed drop-off. My fingers curled around the bedspread. I wasn't confused. My mind was clear. Something had been taken while I was fully aware. Something had been taken from me while I was still fully aware. And as my heart hammered against my ribs, one truth sharpened inside me. Evan might have already taken the house I spent 40 years paying for. I was sitting in the common room after lunch, trying to steady my breathing, when a young woman approached with a clipboard tucked under her arm. She wore a volunteer badge that read Hannah, and her eyes softened the moment she looked at me. Ms. Avery, I noticed you looked a little overwhelmed yesterday. I'm here as part of the social work program. If you need anything, I can help. Her voice was warm, but not pitying. It disarmed me enough to nod. I'm fine, I murmured. Just tired. She pulled up a chair anyway. You're not fine. You're trying to pretend you are. That's different. Something inside me cracked. I reached for the folder of documents the billing staff had handed back. My son brought me here without warning. And now I'm hearing about transfers. My voice shook. I never agreed to anything. Hannah opened the folder carefully. Do you mind if I look? I hesitated, then handed it to her. She examined each page slowly, her brow tightening. These signatures don't match, she said, tapping one corner gently. Yours slopes to the right, this one tilts left. I felt heat rush up my neck. I signed some papers months ago, but not these. She nodded, flipping to another form. And these authorizations, they aren't standard. Whoever prepared them wanted broad control. Her eyes lifted to mine. Miss Avery, I think someone's using your trust against you. The room seemed to tilt. Evans said everything was for my protection. I'm sorry, Hannah said softly. But this doesn't look like protection. You have rights, and there are attorneys who specialize in elder cases. If you want, I can help you make a call." My hands tightened around the chair arm. No one had listened to me since the day Evan drove away. No one had even let me finish a sentence. But Hannah waited, really waited for my answer. I drew a slow breath, feeling the weight in my chest shift, just enough to let air through. "Yes," I whispered. "Help me." She nodded, steady and certain, as if she'd been waiting for me to say it. For the first time since arriving here, I felt visible again. Marisol Chen arrived 2 days later, a small leather briefcase in one hand, her expression calm but alert. She introduced herself with a firm handshake. "Miss Avery, Hannah told me you might need help. Let's look at what you have." We sat in a private consultation room. I laid my folder on the table with hands that still felt unsteady. Marisol opened it neatly, spreading the pages into a clean row. She examined the first document, tapping her finger once against the margin. "This is a durable power of attorney. It gives your son broad financial authority." She looked up at me. "Did you intend to give him that? I thought it was insurance paperwork." I said, "He told me it was routine." Marisol nodded slowly, her face tightening. "This form allows him to act on your behalf at any time, and based on the dates," she flipped to another page. "He used it immediately." She pulled out a deed with my name struck through. "This is a quitclaim deed. It transfers your house entirely to him." My stomach dropped. "I never signed that." "The signature resembles yours but doesn't match your natural slant," she said. "And the notarization was done on a day you were at a medical appointment across town. I'll verify that. But it's a clear red flag." She moved to the next document. "These withdrawals over several months total more than $30,000. They were authorized under the POA." My mouth opened, but no sound came out. Marisol placed her hand gently on the table, not quite touching mine. "Ms. Avery, there's also no medical evaluation, no cognitive assessment, no record of diminished capacity. That means you were fully competent. Any major transfer done without your informed consent is contestable." I swallowed hard. "So what can I do?" She organized the papers again, her movements precise. "First, revoke his power of attorney. Second, freeze any accounts he had access to. Third, dispute the deed transfer. You have strong grounds: fraud, undue influence, financial exploitation." The room seemed to steady around me. "Will this hurt him?" Marisol met my eyes. "It will hold him accountable." Her certainty settled into me like a weight that finally had a place to rest. If I took action now, I knew something in Evan's carefully built world would start to crack. Marisol returned the next morning with a stack of forms and a steady voice that made my hands stop shaking. "We'll take this one step at a time," she said. "Nothing loud, nothing dramatic, just corrections." She slid the first document toward me. "This revokes Evan's power of attorney. Once you sign, he no longer has legal control." The pen felt heavier than it should have. My signature trembled across the page. "Evan's my son," I whispered. "I never wanted any fight." Marisol nodded. "You're not starting a fight. You're ending one he created." Next came the bank notices. "I'll file these today," she continued. "Your accounts will be frozen to prevent further withdrawals. Only you can authorize access going forward." My throat tightened. "He'll notice. He needs to," she replied gently. By noon, she was on the phone with county records, disputing the quitclaim deed. "We're flagging it for potential fraud," she told the clerk. "No transactions may proceed until the investigation concludes." She turned to me. "That protects your home." Later that afternoon, a representative from Adult Protective Services arrived, a middle-aged man with tired eyes and a soft voice. "Ms. Avery, we've received a report of possible exploitation," he said, I'm here to begin the initial interview. I folded my hands. I don't want him arrested. I just want my life back. He nodded. Our goal is safety, not punishment. After he left, I found Hannah refilling water pitchers in the hall. When she saw my expression, she put the cups down and guided me into a quiet corner. "You're shaking," she said. "I keep thinking I'm betraying him." "You're protecting yourself," she said firmly. "There's a difference. You've been hurting alone for too long." I leaned back, letting her words settle. Somewhere in town, Evan was moving through his day, drinking his coffee, driving to work, planning his evening without the faintest idea that everything he built on my back had been quietly, carefully cut loose. He still thought he was in control, but the moment he noticed the change, something inside him would break loose panic or anger, maybe both. It happened 3 days after Marisol filed the notices. I was eating lunch when my phone vibrated once, then again, then nonstop until the nurse at the next table glanced over. I pulled it from my pocket. The screen lit up with missed calls, first 5, then 8, then 12, all from Evan. Before I could steady my breath, the phone buzzed again. Unknown number, then another, then another. Hannah, passing through with a stack of towels, paused when she saw my hand shaking. "Do you want me to stay?" I nodded, pressing the phone to my chest. Within an hour, the missed calls reached over 20. By late afternoon, the total climbed to 40. Half were from Evan. The others were from numbers I didn't recognize, but one voicemail revealed the truth quickly. A man spoke sharply. Clipped. "Professional, Mr. Avery needs you to contact him immediately. There are issues with the deed transfer and recent financial authorizations. His lawyer." I felt the room tilt slightly. A second voicemail followed Mira's voice, thin and frantic. "Lenora, please call back. We didn't mean for this to happen. Evan's freaking out. The title company said something about fraud, and APS left a message. Just, please call." Hannah sat beside me. "You don't have to respond," she said softly. Another call buzzed through Evan again. I watched it ring and ring until the screen dimmed. He had tried to run a transaction, and the bank refused him. He had tried to move forward with the deed, and the county stopped it. He had finally listened to APS's voicemail, and the investigation was no longer a secret. The panic in their voices came only after everything they controlled slipped through their fingers. My phone went silent at last. But the weight of those 40 calls settled deep inside me. They showed up before breakfast, Evan pushing through the nursing home doors with a force that made the receptionist flinch. Mira following 2 steps behind, her face tight and blotched from crying. "Mom, we need to talk," Evan said, loud enough for half the hallway to hear. Hannah stepped in front of my chair. "She doesn't have to speak with you without representation. I'm her son," Evan snapped. "That's exactly why," Hannah replied. I motioned for her to let him through. My hands were steady, even if my heart wasn't. Evan dropped into the chair across from me. "Why are you doing this?" he demanded. "The accounts are frozen. The title company is calling nonstop. APS showed up at my job. You blindsided us. You brought me here without warning," I said quietly. "You signed papers I never agreed to." Mira jumped in. "It was a miscommunication. We thought you wanted more support." "Don't," I said, and her mouth snapped shut. Evan leaned forward, eyes burning. We were drowning. "Mom!" "The business went under last year. I had to take a second mortgage just to keep us afloat. You don't understand the pressure. So you took my house." My voice stayed level. "I borrowed against it," he corrected quickly. "Temporarily. We planned to fix it once things stabilized." Before I could answer, a calm voice cut in. "That's not what the documents show." Marisol walked in, a folder tucked under her arm. She nodded at me, then sat. "Mr. Avery, the signature on the quitclaim deed doesn't match your mother's." The notary date conflicts with her medical records, and the bank statements show unauthorized withdrawals. Evan's bravado cracked. I was trying to protect my family, not this part of it. I said. He looked at me, then really looked, and for a moment he wasn't angry, just terrified. Terrified of consequences, not regretful of his choices. Marisol placed the folder on the table. Here are your options. Mediation or court. Mediation will allow you to explain yourself with reduced penalties. Court will not. Mira grabbed his arm. Evan, please. He swallowed hard, sweat gathering at his temples. Mom, please. You don't want to ruin us. I'm not ruining anything. I said, I'm reclaiming what's mine. The words settled between us, final and immovable. Evan's shoulders sagged, not in remorse, but in fear. And as I watched my son unravel, one truth pressed quietly against my chest. He was still my child. But that didn't mean I owed him forgiveness. The settlement came quietly, without the dramatic courtroom scene Evan feared. Marisol placed the final document in front of me. Your house is restored in full. He'll pay partial compensation over time, and the power of attorney is permanently revoked. I signed with steady hands. Evan didn't look at me as he left the mediation room. Mira kept her head down, clutching her purse like a shield. They didn't offer apologies, and I didn't ask for any. 2 weeks later, I stood inside my old house for the last time. The walls felt smaller, the memories heavier. I walked room to room, touching door frames I once painted, running my fingers across the kitchen counter where Evan used to do homework. Then I whispered, I'm done carrying this. I sold the house within a month and bought a small condo near Laurelhurst Park. It wasn't large, but it was mine chosen, not assigned. Hannah visited on my first evening there, bringing tea and a stack of community flyers. You're really starting over, she said. I am, I answered, and the truth of it warmed me more than the tea. Marisol dropped by later with a folder of my new documents. Everything in my name. You're protected now, she said. Fully. I thanked her with a grip that said what words couldn't. Evan called once every few weeks short. Strained conversations. I kept them polite. Mira never called at all. My new living room was quiet, but not the same kind of quiet as the nursing home. This silence didn't close in. It opened. I sat by the window, watching the evening settle across the park, and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, my own life forming again, gently, without permission from anyone else. If you've been following this story, don't forget to like, comment where you're watching from, or subscribe for more. When a family breaks, can choosing yourself be the beginning of real healing?